Good morning. My name is Muraro Nemataeni. I'm based in Thohoyandou in Limpopo. I'm a certified financial planner by profession, experience in the banking, both private banking, business banking, and also financial planning. And I run EmpowerX Advisory Services, which is an independent consulting and training company focusing on taking financial literacy education to communities. I'm based in Thohoyandou in Limpopo, and it is such an honor to have you all join us this morning because we are celebrating Wills Month in South Africa. So the whole of September is Wills Month. And then this week, starting today, is specifically Wills Week. So the session today, it's simply to educate. Like I said, it's all about taking financial literacy education to the communities. And as part of that, you know, financial literacy is part of personal financial management, which is part of financial planning. So we are honored today to have our guest join us, and then he will take us through a presentation on wills, and then thereafter we are going to have an opportunity to ask questions. Mr. Mamabolo?
Good morning, Malala. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for joining us. We are ready. Here are your people. If you can take us through the session, you're most welcome. And then we will engage with you in terms of the questions that we might have. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. First of all, thank you very much for the invite. I feel very honored to be part of this session. And yeah, I just want to say greetings to everybody who's joining us today. My name is Thabiso Mamabolo. I work as a broker consultant for Capital Legacy. So my job is to assist and help the various brokers that we have in Capital Legacy. Most of the work that we do through brokers. We value the relationship and partnership that we have with our brokers. So whenever you are in a person who runs their own organization, they're speaking about Capital Legacy, you can rest assured they are part of us, and we have given them authority to speak about what we do here in Capital Legacy. But in short, what I want to speak to you today about is wills. As Capital Legacy, our bread and butter, every day, what we do is we speak about the will. That is basically what we do each and every day, because we believe in the importance of having a will. We believe that each and every person, each and every South African, especially above the ages of 18, they deserve to have a will and they need to have a will. In South Africa, we have what we call freedom of testation, meaning that each and every person living in South Africa has a right to draft a will that stipulates their wishes and demands, or whatever that we can call it, when they pass away. I mean, a lot of people who say, but then, Thabiso, I'll be dead. What does it matter to me what happens to my properties? What does it matter to me what happens to the money that I leave behind? I'm not going to be there to see it anyway. But then I'm like, okay, fine. Here you are working each and every day for the next 30 years. You wake up in the morning, you go to work, you earn a living, you build a home, you buy a car, you save up your money, you have an investment, you buy shares, you build a company, you have children. And at the end of the day, you are telling me that you don't at least deserve the right to dictate to whoever's going to remain behind what needs to happen to everything that I've built in my entire life. That's why in Capital Legacy, we believe so much in living a legacy. So that's why I always refer to the clients that we assist that it's about living a legacy at the end of the day. It's about living a statement that to say, in my entire life, as Thabiso Mamabolo, this is what I have done. And I reserve the right to bequeath it or to give it to anyone I see fit. Hence, freedom of testation. Everybody has the right to give away or to give or to bequeath or to leave for inheritance for anyone they wish to do so. Because at the end of the day, what most people don't understand is that whether you live a will or not, in some form or another, you have a will. It's just in terms of what we call the Interstate Act. So if you do not leave a written document stipulating what you want to happen to your assets, then the government reserves the right to decide for you on your behalf what's going to happen to those assets when you pass away, because you never took the opportunity to do so. So now the challenge with that is that sometimes it's not done the way that you would have done it had you been there to do it yourself. Sometimes it's not given to the people that you wanted to inherit when you pass away. For instance, people married in community or property, and this is something that we see a lot in South Africa. A lot of our marriages are in community or property, especially in predominantly Black communities. So you pass away, and when you get to the Masters High Court, the assumption is that because you don't have a will, let's give everything to your wife, of which, I mean, it's a reasonable thing to do, and the law does allow for that to happen. So, but then at the end of the day, the question is, now, what happens when your wife remarries with all of those assets that you left behind? What happens when she enters into another in-community or property marriage after you have passed away? What happens to those assets? Wouldn't it have been better for you to have dictated in a document, in a legal document, that I want my assets to remain with my kids? Most of us, the houses that we build, we say we want them to be family homes. We say we want them never to be sold. But then at the end of the day, we never take the steps that are necessary to ensuring that that dream or that wish, we actually come to realize it. So it is very important for a person to have a will. So as Molalo was saying, in South Africa right now, especially today, we just started what we call Wills Week. This is a time of year that we dedicate full on as the financial services industry to speaking about the importance of having a will, educating people and showing them the need to have a legal document drafted specifying their wishes and requests when they pass away. Because most people don't understand that if they do not do so, then they leave it to someone else to make those decisions on their behalf. I always ask this question when I sit down with clients, especially when I was still in the field. What happens to your children? Who's going to look after your children when you pass away? Who is the guardian of your children? And most of the time, especially when you're dealing with mothers, they will say, no, my parents will be the guardian. My grandmother will be the guardian. Where did you stipulate that? Where did you write it down? What does the law actually say about guardianship when a person passes away? Do we actually know and understand that some of the things that we deem or we think are law are actually no? For example purposes, if there are any single mothers in the room or single fathers, do we really understand that when a single parent passes away, and you have a child with someone else who never really played much role in the child's life, maybe they were just paying maintenance here and there, we understand that the law dictates that failing you, should you pass away, we have to now look at the natural parent, the natural father. And most of us, we are sitting and we are assuming that it's going to go the other way around. But where have you stipulated it? Where have you nominated the person that is going to look after said children when you pass away? So it is very important. So one other thing that we did in commemoration of Wills Week and Wills Month, as we celebrated in Capital Legacy, we just don't look at it in terms of just the day or the week. We look at it from a month point of view. So our Wills campaign started way before this Wills Week started. It started in the 1st of September because we believe in dedicating as many resources or educational resources to the education about wills and people understanding why a will is important. So what we did is we came up with this. This is a pen. It's branded Capital Legacy. This is something we offer to our brokers for people that do business on our behalf, who go out there and actually write the will. A pen is it's necessary in the drafting of a will, especially in the finalization of a will. A will is a document that you cannot finalize with an electronic signature. You need a physical wet signature, hence the pens. This is to signify the importance of your signature on a will, to say that it is very important for you to physically sign your own will, to show anyone who's going to be reading it that I, Thabiso Mamabolo, this is my last wishes. This is what I want to be done at the time of my death. This is how I want my assets to be distributed. These are the people that I want to be the guardians of my children. These are the people that I want to be co-trustees in the testamentary trust funds that I have had created for my children. This is what I want to happen to my car. This is what I want to happen to my wife, not my wife, but my house. This is what I want to happen to my shares in Sasol. This is what I want to happen to my shares in my business. So again, I say, and I put this to you, you've been working for a long time and you've built this amazing machine. Most of you are professionals. You've built houses, you've built homes, you have investments, you have whatever of worth that you have in your position. Don't you deserve the right to choose or to dictate in a legally written document what will happen to those things when you pass away? I personally believe, especially taking it from a children's point of view, our children deserve better. Our children deserve proper financial planning from us as the parents. Because most people, we create a financial plan. We plan for investments, we plan for retirement, but then at the end of the day, without a will, for me, that is a failed plan, because you cannot make a plan that does not end with you putting a will in place, because reality is I am going to pass away one day. That is something I cannot escape. That is an inescapable fact. So if I'm going to pass away one day, what have I done about it? Have I written something to say, when I pass away, this is what I want to happen to my children? Sad thing is, when we dealing as Capital Legacy, is when we go through the various cases that we go through, is seeing children suffer because parents never left the will. Remember, a minor child cannot inherit directly. So what happens to those assets that you assume are automatically theirs after you pass away? What happens to the monies that you for a 10-year-old, if you have not them, or our children shall be better off than we would actually, or our parents left us when they passed away because of lack of knowledge. And I thank you. We can have questions if there are any, and then I'll try to answer as much as I can. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that presentation. We truly appreciate. When you were saying you determine what happens, and then you were like, what happens to your wife? I was like, wives were like, what? But I'm sure some people
Yes.
would love that. So guys, we are done with the short presentation. If anyone has a question, you're most welcome to show by your hand if you've got a question, and we will give you the platform. But while we wait for a question that may arise, you can also use the chat functionality, and then we'll read your questions from there. I've got a question that people always ask, or people would say, I want to put my wife, or I want to put my mom or my sister as the executor of the estate. So can you just take us through that in terms of putting, let's say, my mom to be the executor as compared to having a company similar to Capital Legacy or any other company that I choose to do my will with as the executor of my estate?
Thank you, Malalo. Yes, quite an interesting fact about that. In South Africa, you are allowed to put whoever you choose to be the executor of your estate. You can literally choose your own mother to be the executor of your estate, or you can choose your own wife to be the executor of the estate. But then my follow-up question would always be, do they have the knowledge or the capabilities of unwinding said estate? Remember, the unwinding of an estate is not an easy task. There's quite a significant lot. There's a lot that goes into unwinding an estate. So whoever you choose needs to be capable of doing a proper job at that, and someone that you trust will be able to administer the estate as you would wish for it to be administered. So you need a partner that you know that you can trust. And in most cases, an external partner does the work much better, because we're not in it to benefit from your estate, but we're in it to do the job, and which is to transfer your assets from yourself to your children as you have stipulated in your will. So sometimes what we have seen is nominating your wife to be the executor of an estate that they're not going to be, a beneficiary of. Are we sure that the will is going to arrive at the master's courthouse? Or are we sure that those cars are going to be transferred to the necessary people, can we really be sure that it's going to be done? Imagine a mother, an African mother who has a son who's passed away, and the will reads, I leave everything to my wife. Do we really think she's going to administer that will as in accordance to the will? We don't know. But with us, you can trust, be sure, regulated by law, we will always do it to the best of our abilities, the way that you would want it to be done.
Thank you. Speaking about benefits, sometimes the question is always around costs. And most of our people would say they don't want to have a will because if they have a will, then they're going to pay the money. Like the will is not actually free. There's money that is going to be paid. Can you just clarify on that one?
Okay, so let's look at it this way. I just said right now that you can literally put anyone to be the executor of your estate. So if you're putting your mother as the executor of your estate or your wife as the executor of your estate, does it mean there's no money to be paid? Any person in South Africa acting in the role of executorship has the right to claim 3.5% plus VAT of your estate to pay for their services, including your wife or your mother. So now with most institutions, obviously that's how we're gonna make the profit that we are working on. We run a company to make a profit. That is obvious. Any company is there to make a profit. So we are going to claim the 3.5% plus VAT depending on the estate. But then the interesting thing about Capital Legacy is what we have created is very unique in a sense that the products that we offer make sure that we do not take anything from your estate at the time of death. That is basically what we do. At the time of death, we do not take any money from your estate, but it's actually paid from the covers that we have built in to the covers that we'll be selling you. So whatever monthly premium that you'll be paying, you will be rest assured to know that your executor fees are covered and the estate cost, the transfer of properties for your estate is covered. And should you create testamentary trust fund, those fees are covered as well. We do not cover estate duties, but then these are the main issues that affect estates in South Africa: executorship, conveyancing, and testamentary trust funds. So yes, there is a cost. Any person that you're going to choose to act in the role of executorship is going to deduct money. That is their legal right. But then with Capital Legacy, the system that we created, of which we are happy to sit down and explain in detail, will make sense to you, especially looking at the various benefits that we offer with what we call the LPP.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've got a few questions on the chat. I'll just read the first and second one, and then we'll go to the third one. But with what you've just said, I always say that it's better to have your loved ones mourn you instead of mourning and also have to do the admin. So it's better to have someone that knows what they're doing so that the process can be faster. So we've got a question that says, is there such a thing as a family will, or a husband must have theirs and a wife have theirs? I think this question speaks about the joint will. They used to be famous at some point. Maybe you can just touch through that. And then the second one is saying, please take us through the process of what happens when I have a will and I die. When do you read the will? And is this done? And when this is done, who must be present, etc.?
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Yes, the first question, is there such a thing as a family will? So yes, in South Africa, there are institutions that do joint wills. We call it a joint will. So this is a situation where a husband and a wife write down one single document that is their will for their estate. Remember, as a couple married in community of property, we have a joint estate, meaning that what's yours is mine, mine is yours, 50-50. We share everything down to the very middle. So at some point, it was very popular to do it this way when, for instance, we draft a will and we dictate, okay, fine, we're leaving everything to our children. But as Capital Legacy, when we came in and we started as an organization, we felt that such a view, such a thing, such a will is not something that we want to encourage clients to do. But instead, we want to encourage clients to do two separate wills. So in a sense that when we do a will, as a husband, I leave everything to my wife, meaning that when I pass away, I give all powers and authorities of our estate to my wife, and my wife does the same thing. Then the remaining spouse then has the right to come and amend their will after I've passed away to reflect whomever our children they want to, they want to happen to the will. Or remember, even if you're married in community of property, you still maintain some type of individualism. So you still have a right to dictate that 50% of yours, even though it's 50%, it is still yours. So you still maintain the right to dictate what must happen to your 50%. So a wife sometimes might dictate, I want my assets to remain with my children. But then now with African people, we know that, especially from the husband point of view, there might be other children that are out there that we have never spoken about. So the husband might want to do something different with their assets. So now remember, if let's say, for instance, the wife says, I leave 50% to my children, then we can ensure that her children will receive the 50%. So, and then the husband says, I leave 50% to my children, but then there's a contestation later of a child who was not mentioned in a will. They can only consent on the part where it wasn't left to them, but then this part has already been bequeathed to the other children. So it actually protects the two estates as well. Remember, I said you maintain some level of individualism within a marriage. So you deserve the right. You can dictate, I want my mother to receive 50% of whatever I have in this marriage. Because remember, in a joint will, I promise you, no husband is going to allow you to leave 50% or anything to your mother, or, or your wife going to allow you to leave everything to your parents. So at least in this way, you can leave power to the husband or power to the wife. It's a discussion. But in my experience, dealing with our people, especially people in general, most wives and husbands don't want to sit down together and draft the will together for this reason, because the husband always has something to hide, or the wife wants to do something different from the husband. So in Capital Legacy, we do give you the right to can draft the will by yourself, even though you are married in Capital Community of Property. And even if your husband was to walk in through that door, they cannot force us to show them your will without your consent. So to the second question, take us through to the process of what happens when I have a will and I die. Who does the reading of the will? So what happens with Capital Legacy is we have people we call estate consultants. So immediately when you pass away and there's a claim registered under your name, then there's an estate consultant who will call you and set up an appointment with the family after the funeral has passed. In most cases, if there's an urgent matter, let's say a matter of final wishes, it might be before they might communicate the final wishes if they are pertaining to burial rights and all of those things. But in most cases, what we prefer is let the family mourn the loss of their spouse, the loss of the husband, the loss of the father, and then after the funeral, the estate consultant will be in touch, come and sit down with the family and read that will or tell them what's going to unfold going forward, take them through the entire process of what we're going to do as Capital Legacy. And in terms of who needs to be present, most likely the people who are going to benefit from the will, or the entire family if they want to be there, in just basically for information purposes, so that it's clear that everybody understands that this house was left to the firstborn son, or this house was left to the grandmother, or whatever that needs to happen. I hope that's clear.
Yes, that's clear. The next one is, will my will have a standing in court should I die, even if my husband and I are married customary without any contract? The will was drawn prior to the lobola arrangements. You're on mute. Mr. Mamabolo, you are on mute.
Sorry. Oh, okay, let me start. So, the will drawn prior to lobola arrangement. So let me put it this way. Let me first answer by saying this. South Africa, we do recognize customary marriage as a legal marriage. We do recognize it. There are things that need to come into play for it to be recognized. Lately, Home Affairs has come in and said, there needs to be a finalization of the lobola, there needs to be a celebration, all of those things. But then we do recognize lobola or traditional marriage as a legal marriage in South Africa, with the understanding that it's an in-community of property default. So it automatically defaults to in-community of property. But then you still reserve the right to have what we call an antenuptial agreement. So right now, if you draft a will as an individual, right, and then you go get married in community of property, and the will was drawn up prior to the marriage. Remember, the issue here, the marriage is going to come into effect. So meaning that whoever you nominated in that will, even if you were saying 100% of everything that I own to my children, the spouse still is going to reserve the right to receive 50%. So ultimately, the will that you drew up prior to getting married might speak to only 50% of the assets, because later in life, you decided to give away 50% of everything that you have to another individual. So basically, that's what community of property is. I'm not dissuading you from marriage or community of property, but then basically it is giving 50% of everything that you own to another individual for your entire lifetime. So whatever that you had prior to the marriage or the will that you have will only speak to whatever assets that you share in the marriage. So they will combine his and yours together, and they will speak to 50% of that. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. I think we'll take this last one saying, what about an instance wherein my entire estate pays out to a trust?
Okay, so remember with a trust, if I right now as Thabiso Mamabolo create an Intervivos trust, a living trust, or yes, I take everything that I own and I put it in a trust. Technically, by law, I don't necessarily own those assets anymore. Remember, a trust is like creating a legal entity that will take legal entity. So at the end, to assets that are held in trust. But so if your will says, I want my house, which is held in trust, to be given to my son, and the rules of the trust say otherwise, the rules of the legal entity that you signed for or you created, it might be very difficult for your will to come into play. Because technically, those assets are no longer owned by you anymore. I hope that answers that question.
Yes. There's a follow-up question before we close. Does Capital Legacy help with drafting marriage contracts?
No, we do not. We unfortunately do not do, we are not priests, we are not pastors, we do not do marriage contracts. We only do wills. But we do trusts as well, Intervivos trusts. So lastly that I wanted to add, Mulalo. Mulalo here is one of the people that we work with. She's one of the brokers that we work with very closely. My encouragement to everyone that's here today is let's get those wills drafted. Let's get everything done and put in place before that untimely death comes. Unfortunately, it's going to come for us all. And if Mulalo, and we've had this discussion, if any of your people are are far away from you and you cannot assist them personally, we do have capable consultants that are willing to come and see you on behalf of Mulalo. All you need to do is just say the word.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've shared our contacts on the chat, but it's 0832610700 or info@empowerx.co.za. We will share the details, and I note your comment, Mahabo. We'll share the details and then we will engage further. But all in all, thank you all for joining us this morning on this session where we are celebrating National Wills Week. And I encourage each and every one of you to get your wills drafted. Doesn't have to be with Capital Legacy. Preferably, we would love you to draft it with Capital Legacy, but you are you are free to choose any provider that you like. The good thing about Capital Legacy is, irrespective of where you are based, we can have a consultant come through to you, explain everything in details, and then make sure that you understand what you are signing up to. Yes, we only had 30 minutes to do this session, but there's so much more that would need to be unpacked. And please note that this session is only for information sharing purposes. This is not considered as advice or intermediary services. So if you need advice, intermediary services, please reach out and then we'll be able to assist you, because in order to be able to advise, we need to take into account your information and then anything that would need to be considered. You saw how issues of how people are married also comes up. So I know people that do the drafting of the contract. We'll also arrange to have a session so that they take us through the different contracts and then how they can come in and assist. And to you, Mr. Mamabolo, thank you very much for making the time and joining us. We will share details and also connect you to those that are saying we are ready to have our wills drafted. Ladies, gentlemen, thank you all for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day.